The sound of metal striking metal echoed across the large training arena. Human soldier Ethan stood tall at the center, his black combat uniform still crisp from his arrival only hours ago. Dozens of alien warriors stood in a half-circle, there, strange eyes studying him with open doubt. They had heard stories about humans, stories of their stubbornness, their strange courage, their reckless ways, but none of them believed humans could match alien warriors in combat. The air smelled faintly of oil, sweat, and ozone from the energy weapons mounted on the walls. From the far side of the arena, a small figure stepped forward. She was barely up to Ethan's chest in height, her armor shining with polished silver plates. Her pale blue skin glowed faintly under the arena lights, and her golden eyes locked onto him like a predator sizing up prey. The crowd of alien soldiers chuckled as she walked. This was Kira, a warrior famous for her speed and precision. Despite her size, she had beaten opponents twice her height. And now, she looked Ethan up and down, a smirk playing on her lips. So this is the human giant they sent, she said, her voice sharp but strangely melodic. You look slow, clumsy. I hope you can at least stand before you fall. A few of the warriors laughed louder, some whispering to each other in their own language. Ethan did not reply. He had been in enough barracks to know when to keep his mouth shut. Kira began to circle him slowly, the tip of her blade dragging lightly along the arena floor. She moved like a hunting cat, every step controlled. Her armor made no sound, and her golden eyes never left his face. The captain of the alien guard, a tall being with green-scaled skin, raised a clawed hand. This will be a friendly match, the captain announced. Show each other your skill, but do not kill. Ethan flexed his fingers inside his gloves, his eyes watching Kira's every move. She tilted her head, still smiling. You're much bigger than me, human. But I will make you kneel, she said, her tone dripping with confidence. The signal was given, and Kira shot forward like lightning. She was so fast that Ethan barely saw her first strike coming. Her blade came in low, aiming for his knee. Ethan stepped back just in time, the edge of her weapon slicing the air where his leg had been. The crowd hissed in approval. Kira spun, her next strike aimed high at his shoulder. Ethan blocked it with his forearm guard, the clash ringing out. He could feel her strength. Small but sharp, each blow she landed was precise. Never wasted, Kira kept moving, darting left, then right, trying to find an opening. She laughed lightly. Too slow, giant, too slow. Ethan didn't respond. Instead, he adjusted his stance, lowering himself, keeping his center of gravity steady. He had fought fast opponents before. Speed meant nothing if you could read the rhythm. Her next lunge came in low again. This time, Ethan caught her wrist mid-strike, twisting just enough to break her momentum. Her eyes widened for the first time. He didn't strike back. He only let go and stepped away. The crowd murmured in surprise. No one usually caught Kira's attacks so easily. She reset her stance, circling again, her smirk returning though a little tighter than before. You hold back, she said. Do you think I am too small to fight you seriously? Ethan finally spoke, his voice calm. I think size doesn't matter, but control does. She rushed at him again, this time feinting left and slashing right. He blocked once more, each move slower than her speed, but perfectly timed. By now, some of the onlookers had stopped laughing. The match continued for several long minutes. The sound of strikes filling the arena, neither of them had landed a decisive blow. Kira's speed could not break through Ethan's solid defense, and Ethan's restraint kept the match from ending too soon. Finally, the captain raised a hand, calling an end to the duel. Kira lowered her blade, breathing lightly but not exhausted. Her golden eyes studied Ethan in silence for a moment. Then she stepped closer, her voice quieter but still firm. One day, human, I will make you move. At my speed? And then we will see who kneels, without waiting for his reply. She turned and walked away. Ethan watched her go, not sure whether to feel challenged or curious around him. The alien warriors whispered for the first time. They were not laughing at the human. They were wondering what might happen if the tiny warrior and the giant soldier ever truly fought without holding back. The next morning, the training arena was empty. Ethan stood near the command deck, waiting for his new orders. He had expected to be assigned to a patrol unit, or perhaps kept in training for another few days. Instead, the captain's deep voice cut through the quiet human Ethan. "Warrior Kira, you will go together on the next patrol mission." Ethan's brow furrowed. Beside him, Kira's golden eyes narrowed in disbelief. "You can't be serious," she said sharply, looking up at the captain. The captain simply stared back, his scaled face unreadable. "You two fight well," he said, "but a warrior's strength is proven in the field, not in the arena." Kira crossed her arms, the tips of her fingers tapping against her armor plates. "I work better alone," she muttered. Ethan said nothing, though he wasn't thrilled about the idea either. The patrol assignment was simple on paper: survey a small moon near the border and report any signs of hostile activity. But the captain's tone had carried weight, as if he expected more than just routine scouting within the hour. Ethan and Kira were aboard a small scout ship, its hull painted in the dark colors of the alien fleet. Kira sat at the controls, moving them through the black void with practiced ease. Ethan took the co-pilot seat, scanning the readouts. For several minutes, they didn't speak. The silence between them was thick. Finally, Kira broke it, her voice low but edged with sarcasm. "Tried to keep up, giant. I'd hate to lose you on your first real mission." Ethan glanced at her, his face calm. "I'll manage," he said. "Just don't run ahead and get yourself in trouble." She smirked, her fangs catching the faint light from the console. "That's what slow humans worry about, not warriors like me." The journey to the moon took less than an hour. Its surface came into view: gray rock, deep craters, and patches of frozen mist clinging to the shadows. Kira landed the ship on a flat plateau, the landing struts sinking slightly into the frost. The air outside was thin but breathable. They stepped out, the ground crunching under their boots. Ethan adjusted his visor while scanning the horizon. Kira moved ahead without waiting, her small frame cutting easily through the light wind. They searched in silence for the first stretch. Ethan noticed she kept glancing back, as if checking whether he was keeping up. Once, when she turned, he caught a flicker of something in her expression. Not mockery this time, but calculation. The terrain was uneven, dotted with sharp ridges, far off. A pale light shimmered where the sun's rays caught frozen dust in the air. By late afternoon, the temperature began to drop sharply. Ethan stopped to pull a heat blanket from his pack. Kira looked at it, then shook her head. "I don't need it," she said quickly. Her voice was steady, but her breath fogged in the cold air, and her armor plates trembled slightly. "You're shivering," Ethan said. "I am not," she replied instantly. Turning away, they made camp in the shelter of a rock outcrop. Ethan set up a small energy heater between them. Kira sat with her arms wrapped around her knees, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The faint glow from the heater lit the edges of her armor, making her eyes glint. "You're too quiet," Ethan said after a moment. She didn't look at him. "Silence is better than pointless talk," she said. Still, her eyes kept flicking toward the heat blanket resting near Ethan's pack. The wind picked up as night fell, carrying with it strange, distant sounds. Kira's ears twitched slightly, picking up noises beyond Ethan's range. She stood suddenly, scanning the darkness. "Something's moving out there," she said in a low voice. Ethan rose to his feet, his hand resting on the grip of his weapon. They waited, listening. The sounds faded, but the unease remained. When they sat again, the cold had deepened. Kira finally gave a small sigh. "Fine," she said without looking at him. Give me the blanket." Ethan handed it over without a word. She pulled it around herself, but kept her chin high. As if still refusing to admit she needed it, he hid a small smile and focused on scanning the perimeter. The stars above were sharp and clear against the black sky. The heater hummed softly, casting gentle warmth. Kira's voice broke the quiet after a long while. "You fight differently," she said. "Differently how?" Ethan asked. "You don't rush," she replied. "You wait. And then you move, like you already know where the strike will come." Ethan shrugged lightly. "That's how you survive," he said. She studied him for a moment before turning her gaze back to the horizon. "Maybe," she murmured, almost to herself, in the distance. A faint howl echoed across the frozen ridges. Kira straightened at once, her hand moving to her blade. Ethan tightened his grip on his weapon, his eyes scanning the dark. The patrol had just begun, but already the moon felt less empty than it had when they landed. Somewhere out there, something was watching them, and it would not stay hidden for long. The night on the frozen moon was colder than Ethan had expected. Even with the small heater, the air bit through his armor. The stars above seemed sharper here, the silence deeper, but that silence broke again with a sound neither of them could ignore. A low growl rolled through the darkness, carried on the wind. It was closer this time. Too close. Ethan stood, weapon in hand, scanning the ridges. Kira was already on her feet, her golden eyes narrowing. Her blade caught the faint light, a thin shimmer in the cold air. She didn't speak, but Ethan could see her body tense. They both knew the sound belonged to something large, something hunting. The growl came again, followed by the sound of claws scraping rock. Ethan's eyes locked on a shadow moving between the ridges. Then another shadow, and another, 3 shapes. Low to the ground, moving fast, their eyes glowed faintly red in the starlight. Predators, no doubt. Kira took a step forward. "There. Testing us," she murmured. Circling before the strike, Ethan stayed still, letting the creatures come closer. Kira glanced at him with a flicker of annoyance. "You wait too long, giant," she said. Before he could answer, one of the creatures lunged from the side. It was fast, but Ethan was ready. He swung his rifle up and fired, the energy bolt striking it in the chest. The beast let out a scream and collapsed, its claws scraping the ground. The other 2 charged at once. Kira met them head-on, her blade flashing. She moved so fast, Ethan could barely track her strikes. One beast leaped at her, but she ducked low, slicing across its leg. It roared in pain, snapping its jaws. The second went for Ethan. He stepped aside and drove his boot into its side, sending it sliding across the icy ground. The fight became a blur of movement. Kira's strikes were precise and quick, Ethan's blows heavy and decisive, but the beasts were not weak. They adapted fast. One circled behind Kira, leaping at her back. Ethan saw it a second before it struck. He dashed forward, catching her by the waist and pulling her out of the way. The beast landed where she had been, its jaws closing on empty air. Kira froze for just a moment in his grip. No one had ever pulled her from danger like that. Her eyes met his briefly before she twisted free, leaping back into the fight. The largest beast lunged at Ethan, knocking him to the ground. Its weight pressed down hard, its breath hot and foul. Ethan braced his arm against its throat, holding its snapping jaws away from his face. Kira darted in from the side, her blade plunging deep into the beast's neck. It collapsed instantly, sliding off Ethan's chest. Ethan sat up, breathing hard. Kira stood over him, panting lightly. "You're too slow," she said, but this time there was no mockery, only a strange sharpness in her tone. The last beast backed away, limping from its wounds. It let out a hiss before turning and vanishing into the dark ridges. The air grew still again. Ethan rose to his feet, Scanning the horizon to be sure nothing else moved, Kira wiped her blade clean on the snow. Her movements slower now. You didn't have to pull me away, she said after a moment. You'd be dead if I hadn't, Ethan replied simply. She gave a short laugh, shaking her head. Maybe, she admitted, or maybe I'd have killed it first. They returned to the camp without speaking much. The heater hummed again, pushing back the biting cold. Kira sat down, closer to the warmth this time. Ethan checked his rifle, making sure the power cell was still full. When he looked at her again, she was watching him. Her gaze wasn't mocking now. It was thoughtful. You fight like a wall, she said. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That's supposed to be a compliment. It is, she replied, leaning back against the rock. Walls don't fall easily. For the rest of the night, neither of them fully relaxed. The fight had shown them both something. Ethan knew now that her speed wasn't just skill, it was survival, born from a life where one mistake could mean death. Kira knew his strength wasn't just muscle, it was patience, the kind that could hold ground no matter what came. They were different, but in the fight, their differences had saved each other. As the first light of dawn touched the frozen ridges, Kira stood and tightened her armor straps. We move at sunrise, she said. Ethan nodded. Packing his gear, the predators might have been driven off, but the moon still felt dangerous, and deep down, both of them knew the real fight hadn't even started yet. The frozen moon was quiet again. The sun hung low, casting long blue shadows across the ridges. Ethan and Kira moved steadily, their boots crunching on the icy ground. The fight from last night still played in their minds. Neither spoke much during the day, but every so often, their eyes met. There was no teasing now, only an unspoken awareness of what they had been through together. By evening, they found a sheltered hollow between two tall rock walls. It was deep enough to block the worst of the wind. Ethan set down his pack and began to unpack the heater. Kira knelt nearby, clearing small bits of frost from the ground. The silence between them wasn't tense anymore, but it was still heavy. The kind of silence where words waited, but neither person wanted to start. As the night deepened, the sky above opened wide. The stars burned bright against the black. Kira sat cross-legged near the heater, her armor loosened slightly. Ethan sat across from her, cleaning his rifle in the faint glow for a long while. Only the hum of the heater and the distant moan of the wind filled the space. Finally, Kira spoke, her voice softer than usual. You don't fight like the humans in the stories? Ethan looked up. What stories? The ones we're told, she replied, that humans are reckless, loud, always rushing into danger without thinking. She studied him for a moment. You are not like that. Ethan shrugged lightly. Stories are just that. Stories. Kira tilted her head. And what stories do your people tell about mine? He smiled faintly. That you are fast, deadly, and proud. Her lips curved slightly. Those are true, she said, though her tone was more amused than arrogant. The wind shifted, carrying a faint metallic scent. Ethan's eyes flicked toward the ridges, scanning for movement. When he looked back, Kira was watching him closely. Why did you join the patrol? She asked suddenly. Wasn't my choice, Ethan said. Earth sent me here as part of the Alliance program. I go where they send me. Kira's golden eyes narrowed slightly. Do you trust this alliance? Ethan paused. I trust the people who fight beside me, he said finally, not the ones who sit behind desks. For a moment, Kira was quiet, her gaze dropping to the heater's glow. When I was small, she began slowly, I was the weakest in my clan, smaller than the others. Slower at first, Ethan stayed still, listening. I learned to move fast because if I didn't, I wouldn't survive the training, she continued. Her voice held no self-pity, only memory. They respected me when I proved I could win. But respect can fade quickly. Ethan's hands stilled on his rifle. "That's why you never slow down," he said quietly. Kira met his eyes. "Yes. If I stop, I give them a reason to doubt me again." The heater's light caught in her golden eyes, making them seem almost molten for the first time since they met. Ethan saw the weight she carried beneath her pride above them. A streak of light crossed the night sky, a meteor burning up in the thin atmosphere. Kira followed it with her gaze. "Do humans ever look at the stars and feel small?" she asked. Ethan smiled faintly. "All the time," he said. "But feeling small doesn't mean you're powerless." The quiet stretched between them again. It wasn't cold anymore. Not from the heater's warmth alone, but from the shift in how they saw each other. Kira reached into her pack and pulled out a small container of food. Without a word, she pushed it toward him. Ethan accepted it, dividing it evenly between them. They ate slowly, the taste bland but comforting in the cold far off. A faint sound broke the stillness, a deep thud, followed by another. Ethan set down his food. Listening, Kira's ears twitched, her expression sharpening. "That's not wind," she said. The sound came again, heavier this time, echoing through the rock walls. It was the sound of something large moving through the snow. Both of them reached for their weapons at the same time. They stayed still, waiting. The thuds faded into the distance. Swallowed by the night, Kira didn't relax right away. "Predators?" Ethan asked. "Too heavy," she replied. "Whatever it was, it walks like it owns this place." They sat awake longer than planned, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. The stars above seemed to watch them silently. Finally, when the wind settled again, Kira pulled her blanket tighter. "You're quiet for a giant," she said softly. Almost as if testing the words, Ethan gave a small smile. "And you're calmer than you pretend." Her lips curved in a brief, tired smile before she looked away. That night, they slept lightly, each keeping one hand on their weapon. But in the narrow space between them, the distance felt smaller than it had before. Whatever was out there in the darkness, they would face it together. The wind began to rise again as darkness swallowed the frozen moon. Ethan tightened the straps on his armor, his eyes scanning the jagged ridges that surrounded their camp. Kira sat near the heater, her blade resting across her knees. Her golden eyes stayed fixed on the shadows, as if she could see through the dark itself. The heavy thuds they had heard earlier did not return at first. Only the whistle of the wind moved through the hollow between the rocks. Ethan tried to relax, but something deep in his instincts told him the night would not stay quiet. He glanced at Kira. She didn't move, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. She was listening, waiting. The sound came again, low, slow, and deliberate. One heavy step at a time. Drawing closer, Ethan rose to his feet. Lifting his rifle, Kira stood too, her small frame shifting into a balanced stance. The glow from the heater barely lit the edges of their armor. Everything beyond that light was shadow. Then, a shape appeared at the edge of the rocks. It was massive, taller than Ethan by several heads. Its body was covered in thick, black fur, its head low. Two pale eyes reflected the faint light, unblinking. The creature stepped forward, the snow crunching under its weight. Ethan felt the ground tremble with each step. Another sound followed, movement from the left, then the right, more shapes emerging from the dark. 3 of them now, all moving slowly, their breath steaming in the cold air. Kira's voice was calm but firm. "They're hunting as a pack." Ethan's grip tightened on his weapon. "Then we don't let them surround us." The first beast roared, the sound shaking the air. It charged, snow spraying behind it. Ethan fired, the bolt striking its shoulder. The creature staggered but didn't stop. Kira darted forward, her blade flashing. She sliced across its leg, spinning away before its claws could reach her. The wounded beast turned toward her. Ethan aimed again, hitting it square in the chest. It collapsed into the snow with a heavy thud. The other two attacked at once. One lunged at Ethan, jaws snapping. He stepped back, firing point blank into its neck. The blast burned through fur and flesh, the creature dropping instantly. The last one was faster. Charging at Kira from behind, she turned just in time, her blade striking its side. But it was big enough to keep moving. It slammed into her, sending her skidding across the ice. Ethan was already moving. He grabbed the beast by its thick fur, dragging it back before it could finish her. It twisted violently, throwing him off balance. He hit the ground hard, rolling to his feet just as it came at him again. Kira leaped onto its back, her blade driving deep into its neck. The beast let out a gurgling cry before collapsing. For a moment, the hollow was silent again, except for their heavy breathing. Ethan lowered his weapon, scanning for movement. Nothing but the wind. Kira pulled her blade free, her chest rising. And falling, "You're too big to move like that," she said. Her voice tired, but carrying a hint of surprise. Ethan gave a short breath of a laugh. "And you're too small to take down something twice your size." Her lips curved faintly. Before she turned away, they dragged the beasts to the edge of the hollow, leaving them as far from the camp as possible. Predators attracted other predators, and the smell of blood would carry far. By the time they returned, the heater's warmth felt almost like home. Kira sat beside it, pulling her blanket tight. Her armor had dents where the creature had hit her. Ethan noticed and handed her a repair kit from his pack. She hesitated, then took it without a word. The rest of the night was long. They took turns keeping watch, though neither of them truly slept. Every sound in the distance made them tense. At one point, Kira stood beside him during his watch. Her voice was low. "You didn't hesitate when they came for me." Ethan glanced at her. "I told you before, I watch the people who fight beside me." For a moment, her gaze held. His something unreadable flickering in her golden eyes. When dawn finally broke, the first light spilling across the frozen ridges, they were both still awake. The beasts were gone, dragged off by scavengers in the night. But the ground was marked with deep tracks. Kira studied them quietly. "These were only scouts," she said. Ethan frowned. "Scouts for what?" Her gaze stayed on the horizon. "For something bigger," she replied, her voice almost a whisper. Whatever it was, they both knew it wasn't over. The long night had only been a warning, and the real danger was still out there, waiting for them to cross its path. The pale morning light stretched across the frozen moon. Ethan and Kira stood at the edge of the hollow, watching their breath turn into clouds in the cold air. The tracks left by the predators wound away into the distance, deep, heavy prints. Each one a mark of something powerful. Kira crouched too. "Study them," her gloved fingers brushing the snow. "They move together," she said. "Too precise for wild hunters." Ethan scanned the horizon, his rifle hanging ready at his side. "You think someone sent them?" Kira rose to her feet, her gaze sharp. "Maybe," she said, "or maybe this moon belongs to them. And we're the intruders." Either answer meant trouble, and they both knew it. They broke camp quickly. The heater shut down and packed. The cold bit harder without its warmth. The wind pushed against them as they moved. The sky had a strange look now, a faint red hue bleeding into the horizon. Kira noticed it too, her pace quickening. "That's a storm coming," she said. "A bad one, by midday." The wind was screaming through the ridges. Snow swirled around them in blinding waves. Ethan's visor kept most of it from his eyes, but the cold seeped into his bones. Kira moved ahead, her small frame cutting through the wind more easily than his larger build. Even so, he could see her shoulders shivering beneath her armor. They found a narrow cave carved into the side of a cliff. It was deep enough to block the wind inside. The air was still freezing but bearable. Ethan set the heater between them, its small light pushing back the gloom. Kira removed her helmet, shaking frost from her hair. Her golden eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. For a while, they sat in silence, the storm howling outside. Then Kira spoke, her voice softer than usual. "You move differently in a fight," she said. "Not like my people." Ethan glanced at her. "How so?" "You don't strike unless you have to," she replied. "You wait. You watch. And when you move, you end it." He gave a small shrug. "It's how I was trained." Wasting movement wastes energy, and wasting energy gets you killed. Kira tilted her head, studying him. "You pulled me away twice. You could have killed the enemy instead." Ethan met her gaze. "And if I had failed, you'd be dead. I don't take that chance with the people beside me." Her eyes lingered on his for a moment before she looked away. The heater's light flickered, casting shadows on the cave walls. The storm outside roared louder. The wind carried faint howls. With it not just the sound of air, but something alive. Kira's ears twitched. "They're still out there," she said quietly. They checked their weapons again, setting them within easy reach. But neither of them moved to leave the cave. The storm made travel impossible. Hours passed with only the sound of the wind. At some point, Kira shifted closer to the heater. The space between them shrank without looking at him. She spoke again. "When I was younger, I learned that trust is dangerous," she said. Ethan stayed quiet, letting her continue. "My people. We train together. We fight together. But there is always competition, always the need to prove yourself. One moment you are an ally, the next you are a rival." She looked down at her hands. Letting someone guard your back can mean they see your weakness. Ethan nodded slowly. "On Earth, we have soldiers like that too, but the ones I trust. I trust completely. It's the only way to survive in the field." Her golden eyes met his again. "You trust me?" she asked. "Yes," he said, without hesitation. Her expression shifted surprise. Then something softer. "No one has said that to me in years," she murmured. The heater hummed between them outside. The wind began to change pitch, the storm starting to ease. But neither of them moved to leave just yet. Kira unfastened part of her armor to adjust the straps, revealing the faint bruise along her side where the beast had hit her the night before. Ethan frowned. "That needs treating," he said. "It's nothing," she replied quickly. He reached into his pack, pulling out a med kit. "Hold still," he said, his voice calm but firm. She hesitated. Then let him kneel beside her. His hands were careful. Applying the patch to reduce the swelling, Kira's gaze stayed fixed on him the whole time. "You're too careful for a warrior," she said quietly, "and you're too reckless for someone so small." He answered with a faint smile when he finished. She didn't move away immediately. The moment stretched. The heater's light soft against the stone walls. Then the wind outside dropped further. Kira glanced toward the mouth of the cave. "The storm's ending," she said. Though her voice lacked its usual sharpness, they gathered their gear in silence. When they stepped outside, the moon was different. The storm had cleared the air, revealing a horizon lit by strange pale light. Ethan adjusted his grip on his rifle. Kira walked beside him without rushing ahead. The space between them felt smaller now, and though the danger was still out there, something had shifted. They weren't just partners on a mission anymore, they were beginning to fight as one. The pale light over the frozen moon faded quickly. Shadows stretched long across the ridges, and the cold returned sharper than before. Ethan and Kira moved side by side, their breaths misting in the air. The tracks from the predators were fresher, now deeper in the snow. Whatever they had fought earlier had not been the end. Something bigger was close, and the silence between the gusts of wind felt heavy. They reached a narrow pass between two jagged cliffs. Kira stopped, crouching low, her golden eyes scanning the path ahead. She raised a hand, signaling Ethan to wait. From somewhere beyond the pass came a low, rumbling sound. It wasn't the same as the predators they had faced before. It was deeper, slower, like the earth itself was breathing. Ethan adjusted his rifle, whatever that is. "It's guarding something," he said quietly. Kira nodded. "Or hunting," she replied, her voice calm, but edged with caution. They moved forward. Carefully, every step deliberate. The snow crunched under their boots, but the sound was swallowed by the wind. Then, from the shadows ahead, the creature appeared. It was massive, easily 3 times Ethan's height. Thick, armor-like plates covered its shoulders, and its head was crowned with curved black horns. Its eyes burned with pale fire, locking. On them instantly, the air seemed to vibrate with each step it took toward them. Kira's hand tightened around her blade. "This is the Alpha," she said. Ethan glanced at her. "Then we take it together." She gave a short nod. No teasing now, only focus. The beast charged without warning. Ethan rolled to the side, firing a burst into its shoulder. The blast burned through hide, but the creature didn't slow. Kira darted in, striking at its flank, her blade cutting deep. It roared, spinning toward her. Claws sweeping through the air, she leaped back just in time. But the force of the swing still sent her skidding across the ice. Ethan ran forward, firing. Again, to draw its attention, the beast turned toward him. Lowering its head, it charged, the ground shaking beneath its weight. At the last moment, Ethan sidestepped, his hand grabbing one of its horns. The momentum carried it past him, its claws scraping deep grooves in the ice. Kira was already moving, climbing onto its back with a burst of speed. She drove her blade into the gaps between its armor plates. The beast bucked violently. Throwing her to the ground, Ethan fired again, hitting it in the neck. The roar that followed rattled the rocks around them. It turned toward Kira, its massive claws raised. Ethan didn't think he moved. He tackled her out of the way, just as the claws slammed into the spot where she had been. Snow and ice exploded around them. They landed hard. Kira pinned beneath him for a moment. Her eyes met his, wide with shock. "You're insane," she said. Her breath quick. "You're alive," he replied simply, before she could answer. The beast roared again, staggering but still standing. Together, they rose. Kira moved to the left, Ethan to the right. They attacked in perfect rhythm now, her speed striking where his blasts had weakened the armor, his strength creating openings for her blade. The creature's movements slowed, each roar weaker than the last. Finally, with one last strike from Kira to its heart, the Alpha collapsed. The ground shook as its massive body hit the snow. Silence followed, broken only by their heavy breathing. Ethan lowered his rifle, looking at her. "You're fast," he said, "and you're strong," she replied. For a moment, neither looked away. Then Kira's lips curved in a faint smile. "I suppose size isn't everything," she said softly. Ethan chuckled. "Took you long enough to figure that out." They stood there for a while, the heater of the victory warming them more than the freezing air could chill. The frozen moon felt less hostile now, though they both knew they had been lucky to survive when they finally turned to leave. Kira walked closer than before, her shoulder brushing his arm now and then. There was no teasing in her voice when she spoke next. "You watch my back, I watch yours." She said, "Deal," Ethan replied. By the time they returned to their ship, the sky had shifted to deep violet. The moon's surface glimmered in the fading light. Inside the cabin, Kira took the co-pilot seat without asking as they lifted off. The camp, the beasts, and the frozen ridges fell away beneath them. Kira glanced at him once more. "You're not like other humans," she said quietly. "And you're not like other warriors," he replied. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she leaned back. her golden eyes watching the stars outside the viewport when she finally spoke. Her voice was almost a whisper. Maybe that's why this works. Ethan didn't respond, but a faint smile crossed his face, somewhere in the vast black ahead. Their next mission waited, and now, whatever came, they would face it together.